not like a weakness, it's actually like really brave to talk about it. I can't wait to be a doctor, I'm really excited about it, and that was what got me through.
This expectation that you should just be able to go home and go to the pub 25 minutes, do it as much as I can, don't go my phone.
It's gonna hurt, but it's just an hour, get it done.
Yeah.
I'm feeling motivated now.
Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm actually joined by some special friends, and we're going to do our highs and lows of medical school and what it's taught us. So before we get on to that, I'm just going to let everybody introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Tash. I'm a 4th year at King's in London.
Hi, I'm Lydia and I am a 2nd year medical student at Southampton.
Hi, I'm Aymara and I'm a 3rd year medical student at the University of Nottingham.
We thought this would be a really important conversation to have, to just discuss our highs but also our lows and everything that we've learned about it. So my biggest low was failing my BLS exam 3 times, and it was just the fact that I failed it 3 times, but also it was one of the first exams I actually had at medical school and in person, and it was the fact that I had to go in, see all the older year medical students, and then the first time was hard enough, then the second time was just horrible, and then the third time I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually really am stupid. Yeah, so that was my low. And then my biggest high is just the transition to 2nd year and how much nicer it is to have things in person and all the societies being back on, MedSoc being back on, and like getting to know so many more medics, because last year I did feel like a little bit on my own and like I was doing a medical degree without the people around you, and it's so important to like be surrounded by such amazing people at medical school. And I've like loved this year getting to know everyone and also feeling part of a medical school. I think it's an amazing like experience that we all get, and it's such a good opportunity, and just having that this year has been so nice.
Yeah, even though, I've just got a question, even though that was your low, what did help you, even if it was just a little bit, get through going to medical school, feeling isolated during the pandemic?
I think it was reminding myself like why I was doing it. I know the content's like not that enjoyable, but I always do see the relevance of it, and I get why we're doing it. And at the end, and like thinking like I can't wait to be a doctor, I'm really excited about it, and that was what got me through. Like social side and everything is a bonus, so like just doing the subject I still did really enjoy. What all of that has taught me is that at medical school, it's not like necessarily the exams that are going to be your lows, or like something that you think is going to be your biggest high, it might not be. And it's like just not putting pressure on those things and just going with the flow of it, seeing what happens when it happens, and taking things for what they are. I put a lot of pressure on this exam, and at the end of the day I've passed now, so it's fine. It wasn't that big a deal, so just not being too hard on yourself, but also like not putting big expectations on the big or little things makes it a lot easier. And also like it taught me so much, like it is really important to fail things, and like you grow and realise that you're like a stronger person because of it.
I agree. I think something that I'm actually only dealing with now that I'm in 3rd year is I feel like it's really easy in medicine to kind of feel like you don't have a safety net, that you have to be go, go, go all the time, that you have to pass because if you fail, or you can't fail because you have to be a doctor at the end of the day. But I think the truth is that the reality is you will be better at some things and you will be worse at others, and you need to completely welcome those different parts of like your journey. Like right now, I'm trying to get a 1st in my intercalated degree, and the other day I actually was hit with a module mark of 47%. It was like this really like awful, it was a module on just statistics and maths. And I cannot do that to save my life. It isn't the be all end all. I can't think worst case scenario. The fact is, fine, I'll do badly in that, but I'll do well in other things. It's kind of learning to think rationally and like redefining your relationship with failure and seeing it as a learning point rather than like a kind of end point that you're
the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is a medical student-wide thing, this fear of failure. We all are inherently perfectionists, and I think as a doctor we are going to make failures. Your experience, that is not a marker of how great a doctor you're going to be. And will your patients care that in your 1st year, even if they were to find out, which they never are, that you failed this random tiny exam? No, not at all, because you will show them and you will gain their trust and you will help them.
And I also think people are very loud about their successes, and so you might feel like people around you are all doing really well because they come up to you and tell you they've got a really high grade, but they're not going to shout about their lower grade. So you might feel like you're the one failing, the only one failing, when actually I think quite a lot of people are in the similar
And I think
position.
it's okay to feel crap about it at the time, and you're never going to fail something and then just be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
There's a balance. You obviously, you know, like, try not to dwell on it forever and ever and move on, but also it's okay to feel sad about that thing.
Okay, so my low was definitely going into first year in the like COVID year and arriving at uni and realising everything was going to be online. It was going to be harder to make friends, harder to meet people. And I feel like because I'd done uni before, arriving at uni and expecting it to be this fun thing, and it was just a bit anticlimactic at the start.
Yeah.
Finding myself at home all the time, struggling to meet people. I knew like maybe 4 people on my course for the first half of the year. And I think there were times when I felt like this is what it's going to be like for the entire 5 years. It's like, can I really
do
carry
this?
on like this?
Yeah.
Moving into this year, it's definitely changed and got a lot better. But at the time, it was a bit like, have I made the right decision? Is it worth it to feel this lonely all the time? And I think it's harder for me as well because I wasn't in halls. I didn't like live with other students, so I was living with my boyfriend, and that, to be honest, was quite isolating at times. You know, I would end up making friends like through Instagram. I didn't have that many contacts in real life, so that was a low.
I don't know about you as well. I started to feel like that was normal, if that makes sense. Like, I forgot that, no, like, I'm feeling like this and I'm this isolated because of a pandemic. Whereas I was like, I feel this lonely and this isolated because this is life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you did that, but
Blaming
Yeah.
yourself for it, like
Yeah.
I'm not making friends because it must be
me.
Literally,
Or
I used to think I was good at making friends, and I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? Like,
no, I felt like
Yeah.
the exact same.
and then my high was definitely getting more clinical experience this year and kind of realising what it's all about and what we're doing the degree for. Because I think in the earlier years of the degree, you're doing a lot of like molecular biology and like Krebs cycle, and you feel like, I didn't sign up for this, I signed up to learn to be a doctor, I didn't sign up to do science. And then this year I've actually met real patients, I've started doing clinical procedures, and those little moments remind me why I'm doing the degree, and because I'm enjoying those moments, it makes the really boring lectures kind of worthwhile.
Yeah.
I can really relate to that. Like, first year of medicine, I really considered leaving because I was like, if I wanted to learn about this, I would have done biomed. So I'm 4th year now, mainly doing clinical placements, and lectures are long gone, thank God. But I think that those were the moments that got me through, were the bits of placement, or the bits where, I don't know if you guys have this at your unis, but we would have like these simulated patients who are basically actors and who on the whole are really mean.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
I've been a simulator patient.
Have you?
I was really nice.
Oh, I bet you're really nice.
How do they mean?
It's like an OSCEs, they're just a bit more awkward than your actual patient, who on the whole is very grateful that you're
wants to
listening to
help
them and
you,
wanting it.
yeah.
Whereas they're like, they just pick up on really small points. But anyway, even though, my point was, even those things really like made me more confident in myself as well, because I was never a star at, you know, the Krebs cycle. We keep talking about the Krebs cycle, but like all those, you know, like the preclinical stuff, I was never very good at. I sort of got through, scraped through, but those moments of placement, I was like a bit sort of more reassured that, okay, I've still got a lot to learn, I've still got a lot of personal things to develop, but I feel alright at talking to patients, which is obviously
That's
what
what
it's
it's
all
for.
about.
You forget that in your preclinical
It
years,
kind
I
of
think.
confirms like what, like you're studying medicine and that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's where your skills should be. Like, good doctors are the people that can talk to people nicely. Like, it's important to know the preclinical stuff, yes, but like the clinical experience is so important as well.
So I think those things have taught me that basically you've got to stick with it, because if it's not going your way at the start and you feel like maybe this isn't for me, just stick with it, because it builds out, you make more friends, you learn, you get more clinical experience, and I just feel that, yeah, I'm glad that I stuck with it, because already this year I'm enjoying it well, and obviously I feel like when we go on to placement eventually, obviously you guys are on placement, but when we are on placement, I feel like it's going to be even more fun.
So my low was when I first started medical school, which wasn't during the pandemic year, it was the year before. And I got in, and as we've all mentioned, I think we're all talking about how much we hated preclinical medicine more than anything. But anyway, yeah, I got into medical school, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. It was a lot of preclinical medicine, which was like a lot of science. At A-level, you kind of like have this idea that like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a really good doctor, like here you go. But you kind of get to medical school, and you forget that actually it is kind of hard. I found myself really struggling. Like I'd go to lectures, and I'd just freeze out, not understand anything. Got to the end of first term, like December, and I was 30 odd lectures behind, and I was like, that's it, like my fate is sealed. And all throughout Christmas and the start of the next term, every day just spend time, like 10 hours a day in my room doing lectures. But I wasn't even properly studying, like I wasn't studying, I was just sitting in my room feeling sorry for myself. I wasn't even being productive. Obviously it's not that lucky, but I was kind of grateful that lockdown happened and that first year didn't count for anything, because it kind of gave me a reset. Aside from that, since coming into third year especially, I have a way higher workload. But no longer am I just staying in my room 10 plus hours a day feeling sorry for myself, feeling like I can't do anything other than study. Because actually, now I am handling so much more. I'm on the Committee for Psychiatry Society, I'm doing my dissertation, I've got a YouTube channel, I was doing like a huge charity Ironman triathlon. I'm handling so much of my life, and yet I'm excelling like more than ever at uni. So I think the point, so it's both my low and my high. My low was getting sucked into medical school and feeling like the solution was to kind of let myself go, but the actual real solution is to make time for the things that you care about, that will bring you enjoyment. I'm sure you guys have all heard Ali Abdaal talk about this, but he mentioned something called Parkinson's law, which I really, really believe in, which is, for example, if you tell yourself, I'm gonna tidy my room at some point this morning, it will take you all morning to tidy your room. If you tell yourself, I've got 20 minutes to leave the house, I'm gonna make my bed and tidy my room, you will get it done. So if you spend all of your time studying, it will take you all your time to study. If you tell yourself, I'm going to do 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, and then have time to go to the gym or to meet my friends or to go out, however unproductive you're spending your rest time, it will mean that you will energize and be able to be even more productive when you do come to study. So I think that's the best way to succeed at medical school, and it's hard to make time for a work-life balance, but it's definitely like the best way to go about it.
Yeah. It's a cycle I think you get yourself into as well, because the more you just spend your time working, the more you think that's what you have to do, then you stop prioritising other things, but then you actually get burnt out, and in the long run you have no energy, so the way you're actually working is not productive.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Because you're burnt out mentally, you need to do other things. It's really important.
With the sort of power hour getting stuff done, I find those apps are really good, because you just say, just 25 minutes, do it as much as I can, don't go on my phone.
It's going to hurt, but it's just an hour, get it done.
Yeah, and I normally find that once I've done the first 25 minutes, I'm in the zone to carry on and do more work. So I just think that's a good way to get started. Like, okay, I'm going to do 25 minutes now, see what happens.
Yeah, I'm getting motivated now.
I think one thing that I was going to say is when you spoke about sometimes you're just like 10 hours a day, like try and do the lectures, but actually nothing was going in. I think this is a big thing that I've learned from A-levels to now, is that if you're having a day and like nothing is going in, and you're just sitting there for the sake of it, there is no point. You might as well go, I know sometimes you can feel guilty for it, but just go and do something different, take yourself away. One day is not gonna like suddenly make you a bad day or make you better. And actually by taking that day away, or it doesn't have to be a whole day, like a morning, you know, going shopping or going to the gym or doing Ironman triathlon, you very subtly mentioned that. Definitely quality rather than quantity is my favourite saying.
And you'll recognise when you're just sat there because you feel a bit guilty for not sitting there, and it's those times that you need to be like, I'm going to save myself time in the long run if I remove myself now. But it's learning to like, no, you shouldn't feel guilty, you're just looking after yourself, and it's pointless.
And it's about studying smart, not hard. So however hard I try, I now just do not, like obviously unless I have anything scheduled, I do not get up early and I'll just work later, which is something that I prefer. So it's also about find what works for you, because that will help you be successful. It's not about what everyone else does.
So my low feels a bit of a very low, but if you have watched any of my videos and follow me on Instagram, you will know that I suffered like really badly from depression and generalised anxiety disorder, and I was the worst when I was on my psychiatry placement in third year. So although I'm fourth year now, I've integrated last year, so this was a couple of years ago, and there's a specific patient that I still remember. So I went in, so this was on a community psychiatry placement, so basically think of psychiatry in a GP, so not in a hospital, patients come in from being at home. So this guy came in with his parents, and he was very, very depressed, and I saw the effect that it had on his parents. You know, they just broke down in tears. And I was in London, and my parents were in Bristol, where my home is, and I just suddenly thought, oh my word, this is what I'm doing to them. And at that moment in time, I just wanted to run out of the room, like cry and just hug my mum, but obviously like trying to put on this brave face. And obviously I think it's important as future doctors that we can empathise and we do show our emotions, but there is a fine line between then obviously, you know, prioritising the patient and what's best for them. They don't want their doctor to suddenly break down in tears and
what goes on the doctor and not them. Yeah.
So sort of things like that I found really difficult when I was, you know, the same illness. And I can imagine it's the same for anyone with a physical health illness or someone in their family with a physical health illness and they're seeing patients with the same conditions. So that was really difficult. But I'm really looking forward to my psychiatry placement after Christmas, because I'm hoping, like yourself, that I think psychiatry is what I want to do. So yeah, that was my low. So my high, first high is kind of similar to what you were saying, and kind of about the people that are at medical school with you. Just all very like-minded people with the same sort of values. And just, it's very easy to get on with people, I find, at medical school. Obviously there's going to be some people who you're like, not for me, and that's okay. You know, sometimes med school is hard and there's a lot to learn for exams, but when you can all talk about that, you know, go for a coffee and your friend's like, oh, I hate the Krebs cycle. Yeah. It just makes it so much better when you can laugh about it and you're like, I'm not the only one that's struggling. And my second thing is just clinical placement and patients being actually grateful for you. I think a lot of the time as a med student you feel a bit, on placement anyway, sometimes you feel a bit useless. You feel like you're obviously there mainly for you rather than doctors that are there for the patients, because you're there for you because it's for your learning so that you can be a good doctor in the future to help other people. But I think we all want to help people, and as a med student on placement you sometimes feel like you're doing that. But anyway, at the moment I'm on my paediatric block, and just the parents who come in with their children being really grateful when I've gone to like clerk them, find out what's brought them into hospital, and just taking the time to listen and to say that, you know, we're going to try and make things better, and just them saying thank you. It's just really nice. You feel like you haven't done much, but they're just grateful that you've taken the time and you want to be there. It feels a bit like being a doctor. What the aim goal is. We forget about the value of just listening. You might not be able to do their surgery and fix their heart condition or whatever, but you've really listened to them, and that is so nice for them just to offload. And I think one thing about being a medical student on placement is that you have the time to talk to patients. Junior doctors got like a list of 20 things to do, chasing the bloods, blah blah blah. But you can go back after the ward round and just say, you know, how are you doing? And just be real with them. Be like, oh, I'm not really helping with the jobs. Thought I would just come and have a chat. I can imagine being in hospital must be quite lonely. And you know, sometimes people will be like, oh, I don't want to chat, and that's fine. But most of the time they'll be really grateful.
About the first point you mentioned about your low, I think this is something that isn't really spoken about, and how kind of sometimes things you do in medical, cover in medical school can actually affect you and make you quite introspective or reflect on quite like difficult and like low parts of your life. And especially in terms of psychiatry, I feel like it's even more amplified, because there are a lot of people who are really unwell, and you know, it can be quite difficult even for someone who hasn't had a mental health issue to see.
This is the thing as well, because one thing that was quite common was, well, so say you hear someone who has tried to end their life, and for I think this was in third year, so you know, we've come straight from college school, we were 20, and this expectation that you should just be able to go home and carry on, go to the pub or go and play football, is not really great. It's hard and it's normal. In fact, if you're not upset by that, then I don't think you should be at med school. And obviously it's a process of being able to sort of detach yourself but not get too detached. You sometimes see consultants who are
you know, for various reasons are so far detached, but then also you don't want to be the doctor that
emotionally takes
and can't go home and have a life outside of work. So it's definitely a balance, which I think as I get closer to being a doctor, I realise is quite hard to get. People get it.
Do you have like any advice for anyone? Like, how did you cope with that, or advice?
So definitely seeking help. If you're suffering from any kind of mental health, physical health condition, definitely, you know, going to speak to a GP. I put it off for probably 18 months, and that, you know, I think I don't like having regrets in life, but as a regret, that would be one. I really blame myself that I had like the perfect life in my head. I was doing the degree at uni I've always wanted to do. I was living in London, had great friends. I was like, why am I sad? Definitely seeking help from GP. Use university services, so really lucky at unis that they have counselling free of charge. Sometimes the waiting list is quite long, but definitely getting on it. Go to your GP, because even if you're like, oh, I don't want to start medication or whatever, which is another thing that I could spend about an hour talking about, but I won't. They sometimes know charities and places of support that you haven't found. So they told me about a charity that basically saved my life called the Listening Place in London. Talking to medical students about, oh my god, I saw something really sad today on placement, like, can we grab a coffee? Talking, obviously, we say talking helps, but it really does. Chat to the consultants, or, you know, not even consultants, junior doctors on that placement, and say, how do you cope with it? Because, you know, they obviously have found ways, things that work, things that don't, which help them to cope. So just don't have this expectation on yourself that you should be able to cope, and it's going to make you a bad doctor because you're upset by this.
Yeah. And to add to that, I was speaking to some fifth years who are part of the Psychiatry Society with me at Nottingham, because obviously there's something that's been on my mind, and they said that there is absolutely no shame, and if anything, it's encouraged that if anyone gets to a point in any part of their placement that they find very emotionally difficult, to remove yourself. And I said to them, are you sure I can do that? Because surely if I'm a psychiatrist, I can't just remove myself if a case gets too difficult. Like, the girl made, like, the other medical student made a really, like, insightful comment which I hadn't realised, which is, it's not in anyone's best interest for you to be in a situation which is affecting you.
Yeah.
So if you are the psychiatrist, hypothetically, of a patient and the case is starting to affect you, then it's not in the patient's best interest for you to be the psychiatrist, and it's so normal to just pass the case on to someone else who can better treat that person. So if you are on placement and any aspect of medicine starts to affect you, remove yourself, because you don't want it to start affecting you, and therefore start to perhaps even compromise the patient care.
I think it's so brave to have these conversations, because even if you haven't got a mental health problem, everyone has these days, and it's not like a weakness, it's actually like really brave to talk about it, and really important. So those are all of our highs and lows. I really hope you did enjoy today's video. If you did, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. I'm going to put everyone's channel links in the description below. Obviously, we've spoken about some really hard and important topics today, so I'm going to put some numbers and links to some websites. So if anyone does need any help, there is always someone out there to support you, so please use those links. I hope you all have an amazing week. Bye!